CQ, we cannot be complacent at this point, no? So tayo, lahat, susunod pa rin tayo sa minimum health standards.
Vergere reiterates that apart from the number of cases, the IATF is also basing its community quarantine recommendations to the health system capacity, among other indicators. The UP OCTA research team earlier warned of an infection surge during Christmas season, should authorities decide to place Metro Manila under modified GCQ. Palace spokesman Harry Roque said President Duterte will address the nation tonight on the matter.
May pagpupulong po ang IATF ngayon, alauna nga po. So sana po mas maaga tayong matapos para masimulan ko yung meeting. Sana po, hindi ko lang sigurado, no? Meron po kasing address sa taong bayan ng ating Pangulo mamayang gabi. So sana po yung classification mapasama na sa kanyang address.
For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
Vice President Lenny Robredo says she believes the country can win its fight against the pandemic without having to wait for a vaccine. In a public address Monday afternoon, Robredo laid out additional recommendations based on consultations with medical and economic experts. This includes setting clear and measurable goals against the virus, like bringing down positivity rate. Robredo adds that experts are also calling for additional support for small business and local government units as funds under the Bayanihan 2 are limited.
Kailangan strategic at organized ang pagkilos. Dahil sa kabila ng mabuting mga intensyon, hindi maikakaila ang katotohanan. Maraming Pilipino ang patuloy na nagkakasakit.
Whether or not the President declares any easing of quarantine measures in Metro Manila, Secretary Mon Lopez thinks it's best to reopen more business sectors at 100% capacity to boost economic recovery. Mayan Los Baños with the story.
7 months into one of the strictest quarantines in the world, some 90,000 small businesses out of the 1.5 million micro, small and medium enterprises in the country remain closed. Unemployment is also at a high of 4.4 million. But during the Senate hearing on the Trade Department's budget, Secretary Mon Lopez explained that half of this number were those unemployed even before the pandemic. More than 2 million added to the jobless population due to the pandemic. And while some businesses have been back in operation, Lopez explains it's still a slow climb for the economy as consumer confidence remains low.
Malls, nag-open ng stores pero ang consumers wala pa po. In our vernacular, matumal ang negosyo. And of course, this affects also the number of workers that businesses ask to report.
Senator Franklin Drilon agrees that consumer confidence is indeed key to save the economy, and so he asks, how can the government keep the economy afloat?
That confidence today is not there because you have opened up businesses, but as you said, you know, the patronage is very is less than what we desire. That's why we continue to have this problem.
Lopez suggests that government reopen more business sectors by 100% capacity. These could include industries related to legal and accounting, management and consultancy, science and research, advertising, computer programming, film, music, photography services, and recruitment and placement agencies for OFWs. Lopez supports the move to place Metro Manila under MGCQ, but should Metro Manila retain its GCQ status, Lopez hopes that more sectors at least would be allowed to reopen.
It's not a popular appeal, especially to the health workers, but really what I'm trying to guarantee is if we keep the enforcement still strict and the minimum health standard ng ating kababayan, the citizenry, I believe we can safely reopen. It's been 6 months and the virus will not go away. So ang ating pong real solution dito is to reopen more, allow more workers so that to come in, so that we can bring back jobs and then the income.
In the meantime, Lopez said they're implementing programs to assist small businesses affected by the lockdown, including a 10 billion peso microfinancing scheme. Lopez, however, clarifies that this is not an amelioration program, but a 0% loan for businesses with 6% service fee. Reporting for News 5, Mayan Los Baños, we are One News.
Residents in Quezon City were alarmed after piles of medical waste were found scattered along EDSA Monday morning. Street sweepers picked up used PPEs, face masks, gloves, and even diapers near White Plains Avenue. Authorities currently have no clue as to who was behind this, as the CCTV in the area failed to capture the incident.
We will try to retrieve in other portions ng EDSA kung meron sila nakitang dump truck ng basura or whatsoever that could have done this.
The Health Department reminded LGUs and healthcare providers of their responsibility to properly dispose of medical waste, as this poses health risks, including the spread of COVID-19.
Can cause harm to people because we know that the SARS-CoV-2 virus, dumidikit siya sa fomites, di ba? So itong mga mask at kung ano-ano pang healthcare waste na nakakalat sa daan, pag pinulot yan ng ating mga garbage collectors and they are not wearing their gloves, no? Yung kanilang industrial gloves. Maaari silang mahawa pag hinawakan nila yung mukha nila, or even when they're wearing their gloves.
Let's pause for a quick break. When the big story returns, President Duterte is not keen to extend his term. That's the assurance from the palace. Comelec says postponing the 2022 elections is a possibility, but it might be tedious and it would need a law. The Vice President, though, is raising the alarm on one other concern for the coming elections: China's meddling. The details next. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Uncertainty due to COVID-19 is spilling its way to the 2022 elections. Comelec says while they are pushing for the national polls to proceed as planned, a postponement is not entirely off the table. Maricel Halili explains.
With less than 2 years left until the next national elections, officials are now studying several options on how to go about the nationwide poll in the face of a pandemic. But if you ask the Commission on Elections, they say it is best not to rule out the possibility of having the 2022 elections postponed. But that, though, says Comelec Chairman Sharif Abbas, would have to be settled by the legislative branch. Abbas noted that the Constitution provides a definite date for the elections. However, a leeway clause gives room for changes through legislation. According to Article 7, Section 4 of the 1987 Constitution, the regular election for President and Vice President shall be held on the second Monday of May unless otherwise provided by law. Abbas said the Constitution can still be amended, but it will be a tedious process. To do this, the two houses of Congress must submit a proposal with 2/3 of their votes. After this, there's still a need for a plebiscite.
Wala sa plano namin yung postponement ng 2022. Sinabi ko nga sa kanya na kung meron man, that will be the proposal will come from the House of Representatives as well as the Senate.
For now, Comelec is considering postal or mail-in voting for senior citizens and persons with disabilities. This method is not new since it has been a practice in overseas voting. Last week, Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez also said they are considering extending the voting period to a number of days to prevent people from flocking polling booths. Meanwhile, Malacanang assured the public that President Rodrigo Duterte is not in any way interested in a term extension. Spokesperson Harry Roque likewise insisted that the only way the 2022 elections can be postponed is to amend the Constitution.
It can never be an option for Malacanang unless the Constitution is amended. No? So under the new normal, under the situation po, mukhang ang magbabago ay yung paraan kung paano mangampanya, pero patuloy po ang eleksyon.
The Constitution states that both the President and the Vice President shall be elected for a term of 6 years. This clearly states that President Duterte's term must end on June 30, 2022. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Vice President Lenny Robredo is flagging China's potential to influence the 2022 national elections. In her weekly radio show, Robredo said it is possible for China to meddle in the polls by spreading propaganda through social media. Recall that Facebook had shut down more than 150 accounts linked to China and the Philippines for showing coordinated, inauthentic behavior. Robredo said that the matter is frightening because it involves the country's sovereignty. Presidential spokesman Harry Roque dismissed Robredo's concerns. He says Filipinos are smart enough not to be influenced by unreliable social media posts. And here are the other big stories today. The SWS over the weekend reported a record high surge in hunger among Filipinos over the past 3 months. Hunger rate is now at 30.7% or 7.6 million Filipinos. That beats the 2012 record of 23.8%. Palace spokesman Harry Roque says the government is reopening the economy to lower these numbers. A suspected sub-leader and bomb maker of the Abu Sayyaf was killed in an encounter with the Joint Task Force Sulu earlier today in Barangay Maligay, Patikul, Sulu. The killed outlaw, identified as Arcibar Swadjan, was shot following the task force encounter with around 40 terrorists in Barangay Maligay. Swadjan is believed to be the cousin of the alleged mastermind behind the Holo twin blasts last month. The Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission is investigating 40 executives and officials of PhilHealth over alleged anomalies in the state health insurer. According to PACC Commissioner Greco Bellica, the independent probe will push through despite initial reports pinning the blame on former PhilHealth President Ricardo Morales. The PACC is looking into PhilHealth's overpriced COVID-19 testing benefit packages, overpriced IT projects, and the misplaced health insurance investments amounting to more than 800 million pesos. Bellica said they will file cases before the Ombudsman soon. The Education Department is wrapping up its preparations for a week before the scheduled opening of classes. They are considering hiring para-teachers to assist in blended learning. What are these exactly? Marian Enriquez explains.
All hands are now on deck as public elementary and high schools are scheduled to open on October 5. Teacher Junisha of Talipuga Elementary School in Abra shared that they needed to travel 2 days to get to the province's capital, Banguera, for the printing of modules. That included a 20-hour walk and a 9-hour jeepney ride.
Kasi doon wala naman pong kuryente na gagamitin. Meron po naman kaming printer pero hindi po kayang yung bilang po ng mga modules na i-print namin. Okay lang din po naman dito kasi kapag magkasakit po yung printer o kaya laptop na gagamitin namin, malapit lang po kami magpapa-repair o mag-ask ng service po.
Junisha noted that around 40 reams of bond paper were used to print the modules for their almost 80 pupils. They put it in plastic bags to avoid them getting wet from rains as they spend another 2 days traveling back to work. Junisha called for more para-teachers to assist them in teaching the students.
Karamihan po ang parents sa amin, hindi po marunong bumasa, hindi makasulat kasi hindi po sila nakapag-aral. Siguro dahil po sa layo nito at saka dahil siguro po nakatutok lang po sila sa mga gawaing bukid po, ma'am.
For Celeste, a mother of 4 children from Mandaluyong City, said she had to adjust her schedule. She said she now only sleeps for 2 hours a day because she teaches her kids while juggling her work at a call center and managing a small business.
Ang ginagawa ko sa kanila ngayon, since nag-work din ako, inuuna ko na yung nag-advance reading na kami. Pinapasagot ko na rin sa kanila yung iba para alam nila kung at least if in case hindi man sila maka-attend sa classes nung online, meron na silang idea.
The Education Department said they are finalizing the policies on the learner support aides or para-teachers who will provide assistance in blended learning. Compensation will range from 6,000 pesos to 11,000 pesos, aligned with the minimum daily wage rates per region. A qualified para-teacher should be at least a senior high school graduate, preferably a resident of the community. He or she is not required to have prior training or experience.
Yung LSA natin, ayon doon sa ating binabalangkas na polisiya, ay manggagaling sa mga superintendent, mga division offices, kasi base yan sa pangangailangan nila.
The DepEd reported that 83.6% or 179 of the 214 school division offices said they are on track in the printing of modules. More than 70 of 95 respondents said they have already distributed the materials for the first quarter. The agency has encouraged students with gadgets to opt for digital versions to reduce the printing requirements. However, around 59% or 13 million of the 22 million students in public schools preferred the use of printed learning materials.
Ang pinupush din po natin na sa mga susunod na grading period or quarters ay susubukin natin na kung yung mga pamilya ay may mga gadgets ay i-discourage na natin na kumuha ng printed self-learning modules.
As of now, a total of 24.6 million students have enrolled. For News 5, Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
Time for another quick break. When the big story returns, with a majority of lawmakers backing Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano's leadership, is the squabble over at the lower house already settled, or is it just heating up? And LeBron James looks to meet his former championship team as the Lakers and the Miami Heat face off in the NBA Finals. More after the break. This is the big story. I'm Robbie Alampay. In a vote of confidence, more than 200 lawmakers sided with House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, effectively setting aside the term-sharing deal with Representative Lord Alan Velasco. The reason for their manifesto in this report by Ria Fernandez.
202 lawmakers in the lower chamber joined forces to back up the continued leadership of House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano. A manifesto signed by House leaders states that Cayetano must stay in his post for the swift approval of the 2021 national budget. This means majority of the 299-member Congress is against the term-sharing agreement between Cayetano and Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco. Under the agreement brokered by President Rodrigo Duterte last year, Velasco must replace Cayetano by end October. Among the signatories were Majority Leader Martin Romualdez of Lakas CMD and Minority Leader Benny Abante from NUP. Even some PDP Laban party mates of Velasco, like Deputy Speakers Johnny Pimentel and Aurelio Gonzalez Jr., affixed their signature in the manifesto. Deputy Speaker Dan Fernandez said, avoid a repeat of the budget impasse during the term of former Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez. This as he claims continued attempts from Velasco's camp to unseat Cayetano as Speaker while in the middle of budget hearings. For Fernandez, things would have been different had Velasco, as a presumptive Speaker, cooperated with Cayetano since day one.
Baka tayo maligaw kung sakasakali magkaroon tayo ng changing of guards. At the same time, yun ang problem natin, Ria. Ang problem natin, siyempre, may mga tao siyang ipapasok. Lahat siya magpapalit tayo. So magkakagulo talaga ang Congress.
Abante shares this view. Their minority bloc released a similar statement backing Cayetano.
We cannot just allow any kind of changes in the middle of the budget deliberations. We believe that we ought not to rock the boat in the middle of the ocean, and let us set aside politics, because any kind of political change would be more of political, no?
But this, says Abante, may change if the president speaks up. Abante also said the fight for speakership seems to be over as well, following the visit of Cayetano to presidential son and Deputy Speaker Paulo Duterte over the weekend. House Appropriations Committee Chairman Eric Yap, who was present at the gathering, said it was not a meeting and there was no mention about work. Meanwhile, Velasco is still mum on the betrayal accusations of the majority. But in a Facebook post, he remained firm that the term sharing agreement must be honored. PDP Laban leaders met today and agreed to meet the president on Tuesday, along with Velasco and Cayetano, to settle the issue. For now, it's business as usual in the lower chamber, with a 4.5 trillion peso general appropriations bill already at the plenary for floor debates. For News 5, Ria Fernandez, We Are One News.
Time now to take a look at the latest stories in sports. Let's kick things off with the PBA. Teams have started to arrive at the Clark Freeport Zone to prepare for the upcoming PBA All-Filipino Conference. The first teams to enter the Clark bubble are the Magnolia Hotshots, TNT, the Phoenix Super LPG, Meralco, and Terra Firma G. Players will undergo a 24-hour quarantine inside their hotel rooms before they will be allowed to interact with each other. 12 teams will stay in the PBA bubble for 2 months, with games beginning on October 11 at the Angeles University Foundation. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the Miami Heat are headed to the finals for the first time in 6 years after ousting the Boston Celtics 125-113 in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Heat were down by 6 points early in the final period, but they regained control after making a 6-0 run to tie the game at 96. An explosive performance from Bam Adebayo, who scored 32 points and 14 rebounds, helped the Heat bag the finals ticket. They will now go head-to-head with their former cager, LeBron James, who is now with the LA Lakers. The series begins Wednesday evening in the United States. And time now for some of the big stories across the globe. A mere $750, that's the amount paid by U.S. President Donald Trump for his federal income taxes when he became president in 2016. Looking into Trump's tax data over the past 20 years, the New York Times is reporting that the U.S. president paid no income taxes at all in 10 of the 15 years before becoming head of state. Trump, who's running for re-election in November, denied the report, saying it was fake news and that he paid a lot of taxes. A U.S. judge, meanwhile, temporarily blocked Trump's order to ban new downloads of the Chinese-owned mobile app TikTok. U.S. President Judge Carl Nichols issued a preliminary injunction to prevent the ban on TikTok from taking effect on Sunday. But Nichols declined to block at this time a broader ban that will take effect on November 12, covering technical and business arrangements crucial for the app to function properly. With restaurants struggling to survive the pandemic, a French cafe in New York City came up with a unique and safe outdoor dining twist. 15 plastic bubbles were set up along the sidewalk outside Café du Soleil. Its owner, Alain Chevreau, said each bubble can accommodate up to 6 people, and it can protect them not just from COVID-19, but also from cold and rain. Café du Soleil and other New York restaurants are currently relying on outdoor dining as their saving grace. Restaurants in the city are open for indoor dining, but only at 25% capacity. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again on tomorrow, 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.